wherever possible, issues that had huge implications in terms of adoption. And I don't just mean this will have a transformative effect in this emerging industry. What I mean is, will my auntie be affected by this positively? Will my friend's mother be helped by this technology being embedded in everyday life? There are two things there. There's the approach to government relations, and there's the approach to media relations around government relations. Now, in terms of the approach to government relations, it's worth bearing in mind that there are two things that characterize governments. The first is that they tend to have short-term interests and short-term objectives. You know, their time horizon is a place around a year before the next election. You know, they have to have everything singing and dancing, loads of good news stories that they can utilize and propagandize for a period up to and potentially beyond a year before the next election cycle. The second thing is that when you're in the nitty gritty and you're working inside ministries, as I have in the UK, the thing that really characterizes it is ministerial ambition. Ministerial ambition. No minister wants to be a minister. Every minister wants to be deputy prime minister, and no deputy prime minister wants to be deputy prime minister. They want to kill and be prime minister. And so we'd have, you know, it's at least in the UK government, this ridiculous situation where the agency I was working for would be supporting incredible companies. You know, we had a brilliant biotechnologist who developed a novel new vaccine platform. Vaccines have worked in the same way for 120 years. You know, no different. He developed a new platform, a vaccine platform, very experienced, a guy recognised internationally in the industry, and he had developed at that time a vaccine for Zika. He'd identified the issue, developed it. Incredible. What usually happens when these companies are funded is they can then leverage in additional funding from collaboration partners, international big pharma and elsewhere, because of the legitimacy that a large government funding award for a project, $500,000 or $2 million or so, brings. Habitually, we had a situation where ministers would say, no, I'm keeping, that's a great announcement, I'm keeping that in my back pocket. Weeks would pass, months would pass, a year would pass. The companies that won that funding would go to the wall because they had been unable to leverage in additional funding or partnerships because the minister was sitting on it, and the kind of government mandarins were all compliant and complicit in letting that happen. I even had a situation once where I sat there with some relatively high ranking, these weren't juniors, these were experienced people, relatively high ranking press officers in government. It was actually this announcement, this guy that developed this vaccine, the Zika vaccine, had put out a press release, as is his right. Fantastic story, great coverage everywhere. The reality is I'd helped him. Huge coverage, loads of TV coverage, you know, really great stuff. He's interviewed on BBC, absolutely everywhere. And this ministerial press officer said, "What? There's been a leak. There's been a leak of this." And I had to explain to her, hang on. A company, a commercial company, has some funding. It announces to the world, as is its right, we've won this commercial funding. That's not a leak. You could argue it was a leak if government announced it without his permission, But this is not a leak. And worse still, if a minister was asked, is it the case that you prevent companies from making these announcements? The minister's position would be, that's an outrageous allegation. Our role is to support British businesses, to give them the freedom to interact. That would be a scandalous thing, and we would never do it. But that's the crazy world of government. So that's the first thing I'd say about government relations, media relations. First thing is governments are short-term in nature, short-term ambitions. They look over a very, very short time horizon, often not strategically. And secondly, they
But
are
that,
handled
but
by
Rod, like the
ministerial level.
interesting thing as well is just before you jump into the second point is businesses are no different as well. One of the things I was shocked when I was a consultant at Oliver Wyman, which was one of the biggest consultants, or still is one of the biggest consulting companies in the world. Many of the clients I worked with were literally just trying to fix problems right in front of them. Like, it was very rare that we were working on these big strategic initiatives that were lasting, 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future. It was really like there's this, one of the big sort of plays that Oliver Wyman used to do was, you get one of the financial regulators in the market I was in Australia. It would be ASIC, the securities regulator, that announced some new compliance requirement, and the banks are scrambling, the insurance companies are scrambling to make sure the reporting's in place, the process is in place, because if they don't do it, they get fined millions of dollars or billions of dollars. So from a risk point of view, it just made sense. And it's sort of clear as well when you sort of look at other companies, or even sort of our own experience. There's just so many problems right in front of your face, and it's really that sort of takes up a lot of bandwidth. And whether that's good or bad, those problems first need to be fixed anyway, before you can even have the right to even think about 3 years or 5 years time. But it's sort of quite funny you characterize it that way, because that seems to be a problem everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And the unfortunate thing is the situation I've described in terms of government relations is the situation. Twas ever thus. It was like that before me. It's like that now. It will be like that when I'm dead and buried. Twas ever thus. However, or rather because of that, it's necessary, therefore, to metaphorically hold your nose and wade into it. And what I mean by that is that you find issues that align with those short-term political and ministerial personal career ambitions, and you exploit those. The ministers and government are exploiting those issues for their own ends. If you're skillful, you're able to exploit their own personal ambition or political ambition in order to ensure that your policy objectives are met. So, for example, with blockchain technology, you may get ministers. I can think of one in particular, who I won't name, who are particularly blockchain friendly, not because they have a great understanding of it, but they want to be seen to be at the forefront of tech innovation. I think tech, it's magic and spangly and pixie dust. I just want to be at the cutting edge of everything and to say, yes, this new technology, I'm around it. Now, that presents an opportunity for someone like me, because you can do something which will ensure that they are seen to be at the forefront of something, but you do that not because of them, but because there's no other candidate really at that level, ministerial level, whose endorsement and kudos will allow this to attain national or international significance because a minister is saying something about it. So at times it is necessary to hold your nose, wade in, and do it. So you're doing, in some way, well, you could argue doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, or you could argue doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. But the fact is, the situation in government is the situation in government. You've got to find ways of working around it, and also being able to sleep at night and not hate yourself. So it's a tricky balancing act, but that's just what I managed to do. And the other thing that I tried to do was to try and focus on, wherever possible, issues that had huge implications in terms of adoption. And I don't just mean this will have a transformative effect in this emerging industry. What I mean is, will my auntie be affected by this positively? Will my friend's mother be helped by this technology being embedded in everyday life? Things that have mass appeal rather than exclusive niche appeal were the things that I personally tried to focus on. And that is one of the reasons why the particular Cardano philosophy really appeals to me. And my ready reckoner for any level one is to look under the hood and examine true levels of decentralization on the one hand, and then within that, what are the barriers to entry for Joe Soap, for an ordinary Joe, to become a validator on chain, for example. So, show me a chain that allows people to become a validator using their Android device, and I get a warm feeling, and that it's highly decentralized, and I get a warm feeling.